Okay guys, I'm bringing you the unusual video that I've been pushing off for I think like a week now, 2 weeks. I'm sorry about that once again. There will be a part 4 that's mainly going to be a kind of strategy guide to trading, not as much just tips, just kind of like tricks that I do. And then the other thing that I may end up doing a part 5 will be another in-depth thing for brand new traders, more detailed things to, kind of get the ball rolling. This video, the summary of that's pretty much going to be a kind of like a understanding the tiers of unusual hats and unusual effects. Kind of like like which class is worth more desired, which which effects are a little bit more desired. Once again, some of my stuff may not be 100% accurate. This is mainly me coming from like a mid-tier unusual, almost mainly high-tier unusual trader. Um, and what is it? The first thing I want to get into saying is the main people always ask me, how do you like kind of get into unusual trading? And the main way I got into it is, don't hesitate, to jump in, because it's I mean, I don't know, unusual trading in my opinion is more of like an addiction. Like once you get into it, you keep trading, and it's, if you have to pay an extra couple keys to get your first unusual, I say go for it. But definitely for your first unusual, get it price checked, and make sure to get your other securities in line, make sure it's not duped and stuff like that, and I'll explain what duping is and stuff like that later in the video. But for right now, what I'm mainly explaining is to whenever you first start, just get your first unusual and just hold out for a good deal. Like my very first one, which was which I thought I was being a little crafty trader, because at the point I thought there were no unusuals worth less than a bud. And I got a Mongolian that was, I think, either steaming or smoking. I'm wanting to say smoking. For I think 19 keys at the time. Buds were 25 keys whenever I bought that. But thankfully there was a guy who was buying it as a birthday present for someone and didn't care what unusual. He was paying $80 in Steam games. That's really what set me off with trading unusuals, really. So you gotta wait for that break, kind of just find like that first really good deal. And whenever I did that, I got Skyrim and a bunch of other games, stuff like that. The games that I couldn't sell were the ones that we gave away in our past video. But overall, Skyrim I was able to sell for a bud and a little more. So that was a good way to do it. And then I got a Capotane with planets. But either way, enough of my trading war stories. Another thing I'm going to say is, first thing I'll say is the classes that most people like don't desire. It's pretty much heavy. It's pretty much like the number one that people kind of look out for. Like, oh, I don't want to get a heavy hat, or that's normally the one you'll start off with. Um, and then you'll either get like a really bad engineer hat or a really bad demo man hat. Um, those are kind of like the bottom three in my opinion. Spies, pretty unwanted. Pretty much the top ones in my opinion are soldier and scout. I'm pretty sure the top two, along with medic. And then it's gonna go to sniper. But pretty much like those are the top four that everyone's kind of looking for all the time. Mainly medic, soldier, and scout. Those are going to be your crazy pricey ones. And then obviously all class. But then, like I was saying, also another thing I'll explain. I'm sorry, I'm really jumping around a lot in the video and also in game, just kind of goofing around. But another little tip that I'll point out is the kind of like each class has a cancer hat. The cancer hat, people say a cancer hat, that means it sticks with you. Like you can't get rid of it. It's like cancer or whatever. It's just like, for instance, like my Mongolian with like smoking. That's by far that's worth like like in between a bills and two bills in my opinion. Because it's just god awful. No one wants a Mongolian. Heavy is probably about, in my opinion, probably about 60% cancer hats. In my opinion, it has some pretty bad ones that most people don't want. Engineer, you're going to have a Buckaroo's and then a Hitman's headpiece. Those are the main two cancer hats. For Scout, you're gonna have the bombing run, and the Hermes sometimes is pretty unwanted just because it kind of looks weird, but definitely the bombing run. That's definitely the number one cancer hat. And like with cancer hats, you know, like you can get crazy good effects, but then really cheap prices. Scat or not Scat, but Spy. If you're a really big Spy fan, um, the uh, the big cancer hat for Spy is going to be the Noir, the Detective Noir. Like last one I saw, the Burning one, which is Burning is pretty much top effect, was sold for I think 3.5, 3 buds, something like that. And which is, I mean, pretty cheap compared to any other Burning Unusual. And then when you get to Sniper, by far the Blokes bucket hat is going to be your cancer. For Medic, it's going to be the Gadsby or the Doctor's Sack. Mainly the Doctor's Sack. The Doctor's Sack is terrible. No one wants that. And then what else? Soldier, the pot. That one's pretty bad. The stainless pot. Some people like it. I'm not a huge fan. Most people don't want it either. And then Demo Man, definitely the Capotane, the Karasuras Capotane, I think that's how you pronounce it, is going to be your cancer hat for that one. And then like kind of like the second thing I want to get on is kind of like people always ask me like, oh, how do you know your prices of unusuals? The first thing you got to think about is, even if you don't know prices, how much would you pay for that unusual? Like if you weren't wanting to resell it, how much would you pay to, you know, have that as your hat, you know? Like you're thinking about like, oh, does that hat look good? You know, check mark, yes. Okay, maybe it's around the bud range if it looks good. That's where you get like, you know, heavy hats. I mean, people like heavy and so they don't look good, you know? Or Hetman's headpiece. You know, it's just certain hats don't look that great. And but yeah, and then you have to think about, okay, if I got this hat, how much would I expect somebody to pay for? Not getting a good deal, not quick selling it for super cheap price. What would sound reasonable, and kind of, you know, meet in the middle, you know, kind of figure out how much you're wanting to make off of it, how much you expect them, you know, and then also just always ask your friends who have been trading. But my opinion is definitely try and figure out on your own. You'll make mistakes, stuff like that. Um, One of my huge mistakes that I've done with trading, which I've actually done recently, is not asking, you know, kind of like the bud prices and stuff like that. You know, I just figured, oh, bud prices are gonna keep going down. I was kind of in the majority of everyone who just expected them, you know, to hit all the way to 16. You know, they were at 25 maybe about a month ago, and they hit 17 for like a day, and they're pretty much back up to 20 to this video, to this date. Um, uh, but yeah, that was one of the mistakes I did. But yeah, just make sure, you know, you figure out how much do you think you'll pay for it, how much you think you can make off of it, and you'll just have to kind of, oh my goodness, that we don't have to stare at a black box the whole time. I'll kill myself. But anyways, yeah, just like a normal price guide. There are price guides on the internet if you wanna Google, find them. I don't like them at all. They're you have to. I mean, it's like I guess I'll go ahead and jump instead of telling you another story. I'll go ahead and jump into effects that people don't really like. Green Fetty is a pretty bad one. Purple Fetty, I've actually seen some people who kind of like it. Definitely a low tier hat, or a low tier effect is going to be Purple Fetty. Your low tier ones in general are going to be Steaming, Smoking, either Confetti, Purple or Green. And then your Nuts and Bolts, Orbiting Planets. Yeah, those are, I mean, Bubbling's pretty bad too. Peace sign, TF logo. The bulk of them are realistically just cancer effects. Not many people are a huge fan of them. Some of them look good on certain effects, you know, or on certain hats, I'm sorry. But, but yeah, or like masked flies, that's another one, I'm sorry about not mentioning that one. But that was actually the next point I was going to get to, is, certain effects with certain hats people enjoy, you know, like, I'll pick like a bad hat, like, if you have like a whoopee cap, like I'm wearing the Sunbeams whoopee cap. If you have a whoopee cap with flies, that'd probably be worth like one, you know, that's one bud, it's a 1 bud hat, you know, 1.5 maybe, just because it's Scout. Once again, this isn't an exact price, this is what I'm estimating it at. But then you get pretty much any unusual, or not unusual, any sniper unusual with flies. People love sniper unusuals with flies. I haven't exactly figured out that phenomenon, besides the fact that the Blokes Bucket hat, if you get a, I've always wanted a Blokes Bucket with flies, just 'cause it'd be like a fly fishing hat, kind of one of the things I've liked. But yeah, people pay high amounts of buds for fly sniper hats, and so, you know, there's kind of weird things like themes that people like. That's another thing you have to look out. Don't think every hat you have is themed just because you thought of a witty name for it. That's another thing. This video is really scattered around, sorry, but another thing, what was I wanting to get to next? Just pricing guides. I guess that's pretty much whatever. I may put an annotation at the beginning to kind of skip to this part instead of hearing random tips. Pricing guides mainly. Pretty much think if it's part of the cancer effects that I mentioned earlier. Um, and it's kind of one of like the obviously not a really good hat that everyone loves. It looks really good. It's going to be around the 1 bud to 1.5 bud range. You'll be stuck in that rut for a while. Don't think, you know, you get like a Statly Steel Toe. That's another thing. Pyro. A lot of people like Pyro as well. Statly Steel Toe is, in my opinion, the worst unusual hat in the game. I would rather any heavy hat over a Steel Toe. If you get like, I can't remember where I was going with that. Such a bad hat. But yeah, if you get like, you know, pretty much any bad hat, like a Statly Steel Toe, or like, with like peace sign, there you go, that's just, peace sign's really low. If you get like a peace sign Statly Steel Toe, that's like 2 bills, or a bills to 2 bills in my opinion. Most likely closer to the 2 bill range. And then you get like, if you get kind of like, let's say a Milkman for Scout with like smoking or something like that. That's like a 1 to 1.5. You know, it's Scout, people like it. But then like if you get, let's say, I'll pick like an exactly like a 1 bud hat. Let's get like a Fedora for Spy, and then get like a bubbling effect. It's a 1 bud hat. That's a reasonable 1 bud hat, possibly going up to a 1.5 range. You know, it's bubbles. I think if you're going to get a cancer effect or a low tier effect, go for the bubbles. Go for bubbles, steaming, or the Fetties. Those are definitely the ones that I would go for just because they're flashier. And so when people ask you, like, hey, can I see your hat? You know, you see them and they're nicer. That's, you know, that's the best way I can explain it. People go for the flashy, not for the intricate, I guess you could say. But yeah, that's and then like you get and then you get into the energies. Energies are your main mid-tier and your main mid-tier effects. That's where you're gonna, and then Blizzardy is one of the lower weather effects, and then you get up to your high-tier effects of Scorching, maybe Purple Energy, depending. But yeah, you get your Scorching, Burning, Cloudy Moon, Sunbeams, stuff like that. Those are where it's gonna bring you your big prices. And then obviously your all-class hats. You'll have the Modest and the Bombing Run, not the Bombing Run, the Brown Bomber, being your top 2 God tier. That's another term that people use. God tier is going to be your top hats for that class. You know, like the Anger is one of the God tier hats for Sniper, or you get the Tassel Cap for Scout, or you get the Brain Slug, or the Tyrannus, whatever, I call it the Brain Slug, for Pyro. You know, those are all your God tier hats, kind of, for each class, and you can kind of figure out each one for each. And then for another all classes, the Tree. If people offers you like, ooh, I had this really nice tree with steaming. Not many people buy trees just because they're weird and they bounce around and they're kind of ugly. And then the main all class you'll run into will be the Modest, the Towering Pillar, and the Noble Assessment. The order of price is going to be the Noble's the cheapest out of those 3 with the 2 hats. The Towering is going to be the second most expensive, and then the Modest, just because the Modest is like a 1 hat, you know, kind of fits on everything. It's kind of cool. But that's pretty much the end to the unusual video. Thanks guys for watching and subscribing, and I'm sure I put an annotation somewhere telling you to subscribe, just being annoying and all. But once again, thank you. This is another video from Casted Gaming.